Okay, look at this younger version of me and watch me try to explain to you what magic is. In fact, let's just stop sharing. You can actually look at my ugly mug for a minute. All right, what is magic? And I'm lecturing right out of Crowley's book, Magic and Theorem Practice, which we read today. Magic is a science. It's no different from science. Cause equals effect. It's just not as materially connected as you want. The idea within magic and for a magician is to do specific actions to cause effects. If you do the action, if you do the ritual and it does not cause the effect you want, you don't do it again. You verify everything that happens. You keep almost a scientific record called a magical diary that explains every ritual you do and every practice that you do and the emotional state you're in as much as you can about where you're at when you're doing that. And then you track out the results and see what works and see what doesn't. So magic is animated by the self. You do not answer to a higher will or power. The magician doesn't realize, but believes himself to be the Most High God. Now, they aspire to that all the times. They fail to be the Most High God, but they're not trying to pull from a higher authority. They'll manipulate all sorts of unseen entities, but they are not considered to be higher. So in magic, the magician is in the highest state, is put in the highest state of existence. Now, magic, and Crowley's very clear about this, is for everybody. The law is for all, he says, about his religion, he sets forth called Thelema, but magic is for everyone. It's, in a way, very democratic, though in other ways it's not, which we'll see in a second. So all people can engage magic to realize themselves and make themselves more prosperous in the world. So, according to Crowley, the most important thing in magic is to do the great work. What is the great work? That is realizing your own true will and manifesting that in the world. You have to really think and find what is your true will, which is not your job, but is your true essence, your true way of being. And a lot of people talk about this word thelema, meaning will, as being very difficult to really understand your true will and to align yourself to do everything in your life to manifest that will, to that great work. It's pretty difficult. Somebody might hear that phrase, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. It's like, I can just drink and do drugs. No, you're doing your will. If your will is to paint horses, that's what you're doing. And while you're not painting horses all the time, you are thinking about horses, you're drawing horses, you're eating food that will help you draw horses, you're drawing horses. Now, that's a little bit of an overstatement. I mean, your true will would be probably something more like realizing yourself, or, I don't know, finding the essential truth beneath poetry or whatnot. Or maybe it's just as simple as finding an essential, glorious way of being and being in oneself. But it's difficult because you have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice your limited sense of self to do the great work in service of your greater sense of self. So Crowley says that he started his great work in about his third year of college, and he dedicated his whole life to it after that. And I can kind of see that. He really tries to rehabilitate magic as being for everyone, not just for people in secret societies or people who have access to books or people who have wealth and whatnot. It is for everybody. He says that the writing and the method, the writings he has and the method of magic is for everyone who can read it and figure it out. We have a wonderful phrase that he says, magic is the science and art of causing change to occur according to the will. For my money, that's a pretty darn good definition of magic. He has this wonderful thing where he says, oh, magic. He says this on page 13 in the introduction. Yeah, well, if I want to do a thing like publish, I have to take up my magical instruments, my pen, my paper, my whatnot. I must, do the action, the ritual, and then I must call forth various demons, various creatures, such as publishers and letter carriers and whatnot, that will go and read my work and then publish them and then disseminate them to the world. So there's this great sort of metaphor for magic as publishing. So magic causes change by the application of force. Now, here you get Dr. Ullrey's summary of Crowley's 28 theorems. I'll make it quick, I promise. So all intentional acts are magic. Follow that. Acts that are intentional. Anytime you're applying your focus and intention to anything, that is a magical act. It is seeking to transform the world and yourself according to your will by application of force, which is your intention. Success in magic is due to proper action. If you don't do the right action, that means you will fail. And if you fail, it's because you are not prepared to do what is needed. Magic is preparing yourself to do what is needed at all times. We must understand what we want to change. And to this end, we must understand our true will and then mobilize that toward the change we need. So there is a discernment of what changes need to be made, what alterations to the universe itself need to be made. And you must submit yourself to the process, getting yourself ready, becoming prepared for it, preparing for it. You know, someone said that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. That's very much what magic is about. It's preparation, always being prepared and channeling whatever needs to come into yourself to do what needs to be done in a situation. Crowley writes beautifully in words that have haunted me since I first read them. Every man and every woman is a star. The course through the universe of that star is unobstructed. There's nothing that can get in the way of the orbit of every man or woman as a star, except when you don't act according to your will. If every man and every woman is a star and they orbit the planets doing their true will, if they fail to do their will, they will conflict with a whole bunch of things. But Crowley writes, a man who is doing his true will has the inertia of the universe to assist him. When doing your true will, the very powers of the universe are always behind you. This does make you think about ethics. What do you do about ethics? Ethics are problematic here. Crowley does argue that if your will contradicts with the will of someone else, then you're not doing your will. That's kind of a piss poor ethical system. But from me spending a lot of time with Theolomites and people who live this lifestyle and life, I will say that trying to live according to your will is it's not a freedom to do whatever you want. It's being called to an incredibly high and demanding set of expectations for yourself and for how to live in the world and be decent to one another. Now, Crowley argues it may be unknowable, but there is a connection to all things. You don't see the connection, but all things in the world and in life are connected. And when you understand these connections, like natural magic, sympathetic magic we've talked about before, you can use all of the forces of the universe to change the universe. However, you have to adapt yourself to that force and to the use of that force. You must become a fit receptacle to be an engine of magic in the world. Any sense of disconnection that you have is limitation. Sin is restriction, is another line they say. We have to realize the unimaginable openness and connection of all things. In fact, Crowley argues when the will, that thelema, is balanced and man sees the connection to any and all things, then he has no limit. I gotta say, though, that's really hard to see the absolute spanning everything, even a non-dual thing that everything is everything, all is one, is difficult. But every man has all of the universe and all of the power within himself, unless he's restricted by his illusion and his separation. Magic understands the self. and the connections of all things, and then it applies force through the self and through those connections to make changes. Now, Crowley has some really fantastic arguments about will and about human rights. So let's take a break real quick, and I'll get to that.